And we're live.
When you were saying that there might have been a raccoon situation, BlameTruth, it reminded me of a bunch of my good friends were in one of the same fraternities in college, and it was this dilapidated piece of shit house. And they had a live-in raccoon, a wild raccoon. It wasn't meant to live there, but it broke into the attic and threw holes in the ceiling and like crawling around. And they called it Lil Hisser. And because it would come down and hiss at you. And one of my buddies says he was laying on the top bunk and it was only like a 7.5 foot ceiling. So he's got this much clearance between him and the ceiling as he's laying on his back. Yeah. There's a hole directly above him. And the way he tells it is that he thought he heard like whispering, like a little whisper. And he opened his eyes and he saw a raccoon in the dead of night staring down at him. And he jumps out and it rustles around a little more. And somehow it ends up in the hallway with like 4 in that period between drunk and hungover, like frat guys with brooms trying to fight and usher this guy out. Little Hisser, they said. And they said he was so difficult to get out of the house because they are sly and they're faster than us.
And they have hands.
Yeah. You try and poke it with a broomstick. Don't think so.
It just takes it away. Now he's got a broomstick.
It's like a moody cat with fucking hands. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like real teeth.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a wild animal. So it's not going to get upset when you hurt it. It's just going to get angrier.
Yeah. I don't have a lot of experience with raccoons. Like there's plenty growing up like around me. People like to hunt them, which I always thought was kind of cruel. It's like the whole way you hunt them is bullshit. They like chase them with dogs and the dog trees them. It scares the thing till it climbs up in a tree, which is its defense mechanism. And then they shoot it out of the tree, but not to kill, just to wound it enough so that now it has to fight the dogs to the death. It's like it's a huge thing.
Who's doing that? The only time I remember my
tons and tons of people. It's very popular.
My grandpa only went coon hunting like when he was complaining about like his garbage or like stuff getting rustled into by raccoons.
No, coon dogs and coon hunting is a big thing in the
I had a friend in off-roading
like
who raised coon dogs. Apparently they were very good. But I didn't realize that. I guess I knew they treat them. And then I thought they shot them out of the tree. To wound them out of the tree and have the dogs kill them, it just seems like a mean step.
Are you sure they're not
the whole thing is
for being a bad shot?
No, I'm positive that's the goal. The goal is to wound it so that it falls out of the tree and has to fight the dogs.
I told you when my grandpa killed a coon and I was maybe 6 or 7 and he strung it up by the tail on a tree in his backyard and he like cut around the asshole of it. Mm-hmm. And he was like, "Taylor, come here." And like I was 6 or 7 and he goes, "Look at this." And he grabs it with his big meaty Southern Missouri farmer hands. And in one pull, boom, like rolling a condom off, just, and it's just all the skin hanging from the wrists of it. I don't know what the hell he was doing with the meat.
It was dead, right?
Yeah.
It was dead.
I'll be sure.
Obviously dead.
Be sure.
You think that's bad? Let me tell you what we do in Missouri.
Live. Look at him with those skin.
I feel like with fish and stuff, there's some weird shit. Like you boil alive crabs and lobster, I think.
Lobsters.
Yeah, but that's not even necessary. Like there's no reason to do that. You can just kill them easily and put them out of their misery. I've always killed my lobsters before I boil them.
It's something about like premier freshness or whatever. That's something.
With fish, I feel like they get tortured on their way down sometimes too. Like you could kill it on the boat, but no, we'll just keep it in like a really tiny container with a bunch of other ones.
Fish I don't give a shit about because I feel like fish are just like so fucking dumb. And like being in that tank of water, like the way that we keep fish alive is you run a string through in their mouth and like out the gills, and and you like leave them in the body of water, so they're like down there fine, like in the pond or whatever you caught them in, and then you like pick them up by the string.
You got a giant string with 10 catfish on it, hopefully.
Yeah. And to kill them, you literally hit them in the head with like a little.
Oh, but wait, they're not happy in that water, in that little cooler you put them in. Like
I'm not running a fun camp for catfish here.
Right, that's the thing.
You're not keeping them in the cooler though. Like you take a string that's tied to it's usually tied to a tree by the pond or lake or whatever, and then you string it all through, and then you just until you're ready to clean them, you throw the big bundle of all tied up fish back into the lake. And it just hangs out in the lake. And then you grab when you're done and you pull them all out. And I remember my girlfriend, the first time she saw how you kill
catfish.
And it is, I've seen it 100 times. I've done it. It is a brutal.
It's a
way.
club.
You take a claw hammer and then you just boom right on the top of the head.
I used a bat.
A bat. Claw hammer seems to be, smaller.
The St. Louis boys use hammers, Kyle.
Yeah, using a claw hammer
For all sorts of things. Yeah.
No.
I was thinking more of the boat situation where you catch a fish and then you torture it in this little cooler where they slowly suffocate because it is not enough water for them. Runs out of
even
oxygen.
when we off boats, we still like keep the string so they're just hanging off the side.
Yeah.
I've
Generally, and then you don't
never
have
fished for catfish
of anything. But you should.
We do. I mean, we do that with everything though. Like although I usually when we fish, we just throw them back in. We just catch and release all day. Like almost only one time I think ever have we like caught fish to eat, and it was just kind of like I think it was like right when maybe some survival shows were starting to come out, like in the early 2000s, and my cousin and I were literally like, "Hey, let's catch our dinner tonight. Let's catch a fish, kill it, skin it, cook it. Let's make that our dinner."
Why wouldn't you eat what you catch?
We just throw them back in the pond.
It's like the sport of it. Yeah, it's just like a competition kind of deal. Like,
yeah, it's just fun to catch them.
Yeah,
and it was our pond that was like stocked with cat. You know, we bought the catfish and put them into the pond to begin with. We bought like 2,000 catfish that were like 6 or 8 inches long and put them in the pond, and then 5 years later you've got it's just so easy to catch them,
and they're enormous.
Yeah, my experience is different.
They just keep getting bigger.
So I would fish in the ocean. That's where I grew up, and we always ate what we caught. We go fishing or crabbing, and I'm not an experienced guy, but it'd be like, yes, Woody, the hunter-gatherer who looks forward to puberty has fed us all tonight. Like that was my thing.
Dude, I was the same way.
I imagine more like Kramer when he found those lobster pots and just stole all the lobster out of them.
They were just sitting there down by the beach. I always wanted to cook what I caught too. Well, I wouldn't cook it, but my grandma always had like a standing order where it's like, whatever you cook or whatever you catch, bring it in here. I'll fry it up for you right away. And it was like, and it's so fucking good. And so like every time I'd catch a catfish or a sunfish or whatever it was that was in there, it's just like, damn. And I remember as a kid trying to like wager with my grandpa where I'd be like, this one definitely has a couple bites on it, Grandpa. And he's like, it's too little. Throw that bitch back. And like, I got to catch another one to get more meat. And like, but other times it was just a king's ransom of like enormous catfish, and you had fish all week. It's
fried catfish is really good.
Fried catfish is
it is so good.
Do you ever catch big ones like the noodling people catch?
Yeah,
the where you that's where you stick your hand under
logs and in like holes in the bank. So in my dad's pond, it's the same pond that like if you saw one of my videos, the one I'm like shooting guns into and like I blew a boat up in and all that nonsense. All of our like neighbors who would fish on Lake Hartwell, if they caught a really big catfish, they would bring it to us and put it in our pond. So there were like 50 to 80 pound catfish in our pond at one point. Wow. Massive catfish, like as long as your fucking leg, and their heads just literally as big as your whole face. Like their head is almost as big as a human head.
They're enormous
in there.
There's like a sweet spot of size for a catfish. Like if it gets too big, it starts to taste weird.
Yeah. We wouldn't eat anything that was over like 10 pounds. Like a 10-pound catfish is a really big catfish.
It's a huge fish. Yeah, and it's got a ton of meat on it. And like I think that's about where we topped out for catching. Or
we would eat like 6-pound catfish, like stuff like that. Like it's plenty of food to eat. Like it's not 6 pounds of meat. Like once you've cleaned it and done everything and cooked it, Did
you ever have like bluegill in there too?
No, we just had catfish and brim. There was no I don't know what the correct is. It crappie or crappie?
I think it's crappie.
Yeah, there were none of those in there. Some of our neighbors had that stuff in their ponds, but we had all blue catfish and channel catfish and what we called mud cats, which were like a dark brown color.
We had all kinds of those. Still do, I guess, in their ponds, but the bluegills, like those little fish, were like the only, you could hardly get any meat off of even a really big one, but it fries up like tastier than anything I've ever had in a restaurant. It's, you know what I'm talking about?
Bluegill before, it's super fucking good. They're usually pretty small though. I think they're like the size of maybe your hand. That's
yeah. You get like one the size of your hand, or like that weighs like 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds. You're like, damn, that's a winner of a bluegill. That's huge.
There's something weird about NC where we have the biggest fucking catfish ever. I'm gonna send you guys a little article. This was this year actually. Just gigantic fucking catfish, about 80 pounds,
Wow.
52 inches. Yeah, they look almost like sharks.
That's huge.
Yeah, and that was this year. So
how old is that thing?
I don't know. How long do they live?
Dinosaur.
I feel like they can live forever. They're one of those like crocodile style animals. They just keep going.
Oh, interesting. They just get bigger and bigger, I guess.
A Wells catfish can live 60 years.
Holy shit.
That's unbelievable. It seems like if they get big enough that they just outgrow any predator other than us, they just kind of keep living until they're too big to even function or swim around.
Yeah, I mean these are huge. 120 pounds, fucking 60 inches long. Like, goddamn.
Yeah, enormous. That's too big though. It wouldn't taste very good.
No, that would taste like shit.
That's
the other thing. Like catfish are like the scavengers of freshwater bodies. They eat like everything that floats to the or sinks to the bottom of the water. They're eating all that rotten dead things. That's
why you got to fry them. Nobody would ever saute a fillet of catfish. Only a smell. Can you imagine? Oh, and this is something that people don't know. Like some people are like, "Oh, catfish is disgusting." And it's like, what you need to do is after you fillet it and clean it, you leave it for like an hour plus in ice cold salt water, and that'll leach out a lot of that fish taste, or all the blood and the leach, and the kind of fishy taste of it, and it'll be 10 times better.
Don't they breathe do they breathe air, catfish? I feel like they can survive on the side of a lake, like in the dirt, for 10 hours or something.
They can survive up until the hammer comes out, and sometimes that's a long time.
We hit them a long time before 10 hours can transpire, but no, I know what you're talking about. I think there's some African catfish that does this thing because
they have all of them.
I don't know.
Okay.
But I know that's particular. There's that African catfish that because like in the dry season, the bodies of water shrink. They'll like hop over to like the next pond or whatever.
Oh, like the vestigial legs, that kind of.
Yeah.
I think so.
But yeah, that was a big part of growing up was like fishing for catfish, but only like caught, killed, and ate one that one time, and it did not end well.